representing District 9 and Chair of the committee, joined this evening by my colleague, Nuri Martinez, committee member, and we expect one or two other committee members to join us. I also see two of my colleagues with us, Mike Bonin from District 11 and Mitchell Farrell from Council District 13. Mr. Clerk, what is the business before us this evening?
Item number one is comments from the public regarding establishing a minimum wage for all employees within the City of Los Angeles and inclusion of wage theft provisions to any citywide minimum wage ordinance. This item is continued from the meetings of March 24th and March 26th.
Thank you. We want to welcome everyone to our second community meeting, hearing to discuss our current proposal to raise the minimum wage here in Los Angeles. I'd like to give a special thank you to my colleague, Nuri Martinez, whose district we are in tonight, and who has been a strong advocate on this issue. I'm glad to be here in our beautiful Van Nuys City Hall, a historic building that represents how your local government should serve you, no matter what part of the city you live in. And that was the thought process behind holding this series of hearings in every corner of the city to ensure that all residents have a chance to give us their feedback on this important issue. Let's be clear, this is a critical debate that we're having because the numbers don't lie. Los Angeles is facing a poverty crisis. As we celebrate Cesar Chavez today, we remember a man who fought for the rights of workers to have decent working conditions and fair play. 50 years later, that struggle continues to this city. The fastest growing segment of our population is the number of working poor. These are people who get up and go to work every day, who earn their pay with dignity and pride, and yet the wages they bring home don't even afford them the bare necessities. Yesterday, we received the reassuring news that our colleagues on the County Board of Supervisors also share the concern about the growing income disparity. They've launched their own effort to raise the wage for more than 1 million residents in our surrounding county areas, mirroring our efforts at the city level. Our colleagues understand that poverty and income equality are key civil rights issues of our time. Addressing those issues is why I joined my colleagues, Council members Nuri Martinez, Mike Bonin, Gil Cedillo, to introduce a motion proposing to raise the minimum wages in Los Angeles to $13.25 by 2017 and $15.25 by 2019. I have a sense of urgency to get this policy enacted as soon as possible because our families cannot afford to wait any longer. To that end, as a committee, we requested our chief legislative analyst to commission an economic impact report of the proposed minimum wage increase. To inspire a robust debate, I also asked our business and labor partners to produce their own studies of this policy. What the process produced was 3 very different studies. They give us a variety of perspectives. As a committee, we got a chance to hear from the authors of those studies last week, but it's in these hearings that we'll focus on getting our most important feedback, the testimony that comes from men and women who work in our city and who maintain their business in our communities. Before we begin the legislative testimony this evening, I want to invite my colleague, Paul Krikorian, to share a few thoughts if he chooses to do so. Mr. Krikorian.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and let me start by thanking you for your leadership on one of the most critical issues of our day, addressing poverty in Los Angeles, addressing the nagging problem of wage disparity, ensuring that as Los Angeles continues to rebound and our economy continues to improve, that all Angelinos are able to share in that recovery. It's one of the most critical issues we'll probably grapple with in our career in public office, and I want to thank you for the leadership that you've shown in this area. And I especially want to thank you for holding this hearing in Van Nuys so that the people of the San Fernando Valley have an opportunity to weigh in. This morning, I had the good fortune of being able to be with Mayor Garcetti and United States Secretary of Labor Perez at Bobrick Manufacturing. And Bobrick Manufacturing is a business in Los Angeles that's been in business for over 100 years, manufacturing. They've been in the Valley for a half century. And I think as we see the continuing increase in manufacturing jobs, and as we see that we're starting to bring some of these jobs back to Southern California, it is critical, as both the mayor and the secretary said today. And by the way, so did too the management of Bobrick. Talked about how important it is that we address this problem of wage disparity. So our challenge as a council is to make sure that we do this in a way that's going to be sustainable, that's going to not have adverse consequences to some of the very people that we're trying to help, to ensure that we're continuing to create jobs and create good jobs while we're continuing to lift the wage. So that's what these studies have been about. That's why it's so important that we dig in and ensure that we have a policy that works so that we can lift all boats and ensure that we're continuing to create jobs and stimulate the economic recovery that we're enjoying now. So thank you very much for doing this, and thank you all for participating in this process and coming out to City Hall.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Martinez has indicated she will make some comments after, or Councilwoman, would you care to?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think you, Mr. Krikorian, and yourself have pretty much covered it all, but I want to welcome everyone to Council District 6. Thank you so much for being here this evening. I think we should get started. We have a lot of speaking cards, and so I think it's going to be a pretty long evening, so we should get started as soon as possible.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I'm going to extend a courtesy to our colleagues. They wish to make an opening statement. Councilman Mitchell Farrell, Council District 13. Yes, sir. Right up. Followed by Councilman Mike Bonin.
I see 3 and 3 more because we've not
Okay.
agendized as a council meeting.
Okay, we'll keep count.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Price, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, Economic Development Committee members, I really want to express my gratitude for holding these hearings as well across the city so you can hear the diversity of thought on our approach to raising the minimum wage and helping to lift people out of poverty. And from the very beginning, I've been calling for a very thoughtful, measured approach so that we get this policy right. We have to keep in mind, of course, those struggling at the margins and also those who employ those struggling at the margins, and as well as the nonprofits that serve our neighborhoods. And I think that these hearings will provide the best opportunity to hear that diversity of thought, and I'm looking very forward to the one in West Los Angeles as well. Nothing that we do will probably be as important as this policy decision that we make. It will have far-reaching effects on the Los Angeles economy, and I know that if we have a data-based, evidence-based approach to our decision-making, we will land on the right policy. So, again, thank you, and I look forward to hearing all of the comments this evening.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilmember Mike Bonin, representing the 11th Council District.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, colleagues. As Mr. O'Farrell said, thank you so much for being here and engaging directly with the community on this issue, which is so important to the livelihood and the well-being of the millions of people who call Los Angeles home. We're here tonight in the middle of a city that has historically faced stark divisions in race, in social status, in culture. Stark divisions in geography that have left the San Fernando Valley, San Pedro, and other parts of the city often feeling isolated. And a city that is starkly divided in income. You talked very eloquently, Mr. Chair, about the growing income gap here in Los Angeles. It is a yawning, crushing gap where the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. Children are consigned to lives of poverty, families are deteriorating, and people do not have the disposable income to contribute to our economy, to help support our small businesses, to have dinner at a local restaurant, to shop at a mom-and-pop store. This is a debilitating situation, and it is vitally important that we as a council act. It was my pleasure to co-introduce this motion with you, Mr. Price and Ms. Martinez. I very much look forward to this issue being hashed out with the community, coming all the way to council. You have had 3 exhaustive studies prepared for you. I want to underscore that 2 of them have indicated that raising the wage, as we have proposed, to $15.25 by 2019 is a reasonable proposal that should be considered and should be approved. We have had, in my district, I've surveyed my local businesses. By 2 to 1, the businesses in my district have said that they support this minimum wage proposal going to $15. And they have said, over 2/3 of them, that this would have no negative impact on their businesses whatsoever. We have seen the nonprofit industry. The other day, Cal Nonprofits, a statewide organization of 100,000 nonprofits, come out and support raising the minimum wage. The lack of a minimum wage of a living wage here in Los Angeles is destroying the city. It is impairing our economy, and it is undermining our family units. It isn't just about disposable income. A family that doesn't have enough money to take care of their health care needs. They don't have enough time to put into their children's education. It destroys our society, and it destroys the fabric of the family here in Los Angeles. As I've said before, I think we have plenty of evidence that we have a need to raise the minimum wage. I think we know very clearly that we have the ability to raise the minimum wage, and I therefore submit that we have the moral and the economic obligation to raise the minimum wage. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We've also been joined by another colleague, no stranger to this area, the Honorable Felipe Fuentes, representing District 7.
Thank you, Mr. Price, Mr. Krikorian, and Ms. Martinez. Let me begin by thanking you, Committee Chairman Price, for your, I think, steadfast ownership of the issue and accommodating so many parts of Los Angeles in taking part in this very important conversation. I know that this is the 3rd of 4 proposed meetings citywide so that we get input. And I think by the progress that we're making in the conversations, and certainly the show of force by people who are interested, we are certainly going to benefit from the engagement and the conversation of all of Los Angeles. I wanted to just sort of point out a couple of things, and I know that you're in receipt of a letter that a couple of us drafted to you, hopefully outlining some of the challenges and maybe even proposed solutions on how it is that we get to a policy that makes not just the obligation realized that I think that we all have, but makes it so that we are really doing the best that we can for the city of Los Angeles. And there's a couple of things that sort of come to mind. I think that the authors, obviously, the intention is to really address the closing or the need to close the gap between people's livability potential, the lack of affordable housing, and also their revenues, their income. And so it begs a couple of questions. How it is that we push those things together so that we make it for a more livable Los Angeles, one where, as my colleague Mr. Bonin mentioned, we could be doing better by our families in the city. So I don't want to lose sight of the opportunity that we have to really fortify the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and everything that we can to move that side of the ledger. But as we're talking about how it is that we move people's income to a place that is livable and dignified and hopefully prosperous enough so that everybody can benefit, I want to make sure that we don't lose track of a couple of things. How we do this, I think, is going to be critical, in particular in how it is that we measure the economy at any given moment in the city of Los Angeles. As we try to outline in a letter to you, Mr. Chair, there's opportunities, I think, to really make some metrics be known to all of us so that we don't simply put something on autopilot and lose sight of whether the economy is foundering or is being successful. It may be that we have to move the needle a little sooner than not. And so I think that's something that's really critical. And how you do that, we proposed a couple of ideas for you. The other thing that I think is incredibly important, for me at least, is that any policy that we put in place has to have teeth. It has to make it so that there is a detrimental effect to those employers who don't abide by the policy, so that they understand that there are real consequences if people somehow try to skirt the law or continue to do things that don't work for us, or worse, drive the economy underground, because I think there's a real potential for us, if we're not careful, to just rely on what's already an overly taxed judicial system, and it's going to have to be so that we have to figure out a way that we have the enforcement capabilities to deal with wage theft and these other things. And the last thing that I wanted to mention that's of particular note for districts like mine is how it is that we are going to phase this in for real, in my opinion, small businesses, micro businesses. And talking to different businesses in my district, it's hard to sort of understand what is small. As we've talked about privately, there are tons of different definitions as to what is small. And I just think of Van Nuys Boulevard in the heart of Pacoima, small restaurants like Mikey's Cafe or Birreria Rosa Maria or Carnitas Loya, where they've got just a handful of employees, and the difference between expanding by 1 or 2 people and not is something that is really, I think, up in the air until we figure out how it is that we're going to address these small businesses. But in closing, I think that it goes without saying there is tremendous support by all of us to want to make sure that, one, we get this policy put in place quickly, but also do it in a way that really makes it so that we lift all boats, we really succeed together and cause no harm to our local economy, and hopefully lead the way for the rest of the county and the state of California. And with that, I want to thank you, Mr. Chair and members, for indulging me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fuentes, for your thoughtful and very helpful comments on this issue. Another colleague was not able to join us tonight, Bob Blumenfeld, representing the 3rd District. However, his deputy is here with us, and I understand she would like to share some comments from the councilman. Lynn? Here comes Lynn.
Thank you very much for allowing me some time. Councilmember Blumenfield is out of town and unable to be here tonight, but he did do a very condensed letter from the original 9-page letter that he and Councilmembers O'Farrell and Councilmember Fuentes sent to you, and I just wanted to do some highlights from that letter. And we want to thank the committee for your leadership on the minimum wage and your dedication to lifting Angelenos out of poverty. Thank you also for coming to the Valley tonight. We appreciate you and your committee colleagues making a special effort to hear from Valley voices. Like you, Councilmember Blumenfield strongly supports raising the wage. He wants to make sure that we get it right so that low-income families earn more money while we create jobs. To do so, we must make sure our constituents benefit from the wage more than they lose out from possible layoffs or job losses. It is his hope that we will include performance triggers in any eventual minimum wage proposal to give us checks and balances to get the timing right. We also need strong enforcement against wage theft. It's the right thing to do to make sure hardworking people get paid what they earn. Councilmember Blumenfield has been working with Council members Fuentes and O'Farrell on some possible solutions to some of the challenges a higher wage may pose to our nonprofits and small businesses, solutions that he hopes the committee will join in considering. Number 1, for some nonprofits, we must provide a longer phase-in to allow time to adjust, time to lobby for higher reimbursement rates, and time to plan so that crucial services aren't cut too deeply. One measure of a nonprofit's ability to adjust is if their top executive earns more than 10 times the minimum wage. Los Angeles has given similar special dispensation to nonprofits that have such a wage disparity ratio in implementing the living wage ordinance. Number 2, providing certain small businesses a longer phase-in. Our neighborhood storefronts already face a high risk of failure, and they might need additional time to make the adjustment. Number 3, taking into account total compensation for workers who get commissions, benefits, paid time off, or gratuities, so that they earn at least the minimum wage but allow a lower hourly wage if it is only one part of their total earnings. And number 4, helping certain nonprofits that train and support people with economic disadvantages, such as a criminal record, developmental disability, or homelessness. They may need a transitional on-ramp wage to get skills and jobs. Youth should also be encouraged to take that first job or summer job in a transitional program. Councilmember Blumenfield believes these ideas would make the minimum wage work for everyone, and he appreciates your thoughtful review. Thank you for your efforts and engagement.
Thank you for your comments, and we appreciate the councilman for his thoughts. Okay, we're going to begin taking testimony after we invite our chief legislative analyst to give us a brief summary of the prior studies. Let me just say that we received over 100 cards, and as is our custom, we're going to let everyone speak. However, if your comments are just repeating the comment that someone else made, if you're in the same group, we would encourage you to pass so that we can have a chance to get through all of the cards. We're going to try to balance them as best we can so that we're hearing pro and con, and we just appreciate your cooperation. Limiting your remarks to 1 minute will help us make sure that we hear from everyone. And so without further ado, we'd like to ask our chief legislative analyst, Sharon So, to give us an update on the 3 reports that were received by your office on this issue.
Yes, good evening. As the chair has indicated, we did receive 3 studies. Those 3 studies are actually on file with the city clerk's office and available for public review. The purpose of these community meetings is actually to get input from residents and business to hear the impact on them as well as the impact on the city economy. With regard to a summary of the 3 reports that are on file, the first was from the University of California at Berkeley. That was a study that was commissioned by the city. Their proposal essentially found that the proposal would have significant benefits to workers and their families, and they estimate that somewhere in the neighborhood of 542 to 609,000 workers will see an increase as a result of the minimum wage proposal. They found that with regard to business, the operating costs would increase by in the neighborhood of 0.5 to 0.9%, with the greatest impacted industries being in food service, healthcare, and social assistance, retail trade, administrative, and waste management. They also found that consumer demand would decrease as a result of price increases, corresponding to a reduction of 1,500 to 3,500 jobs. But when the regional impact on the county is considered, that job growth would actually grow by 3,700 to 5,200 jobs. UC Berkeley basically concludes that the benefits of the proposal outweigh costs in the city, and when the county impact is considered, the net impact will be positive. They did also make one finding that if the city were to proceed with such a proposal, that it would be essential to monitor and enforce, and they also found that with regard to nonprofits and small business, that they may need some assistance in this transition period. The second report was from Beacon report, which was commissioned by the Chamber of Commerce. They found that the proposal itself is overly broad and does not provide a good cost-benefit return to the city. They indicated that the proposal would aid some families, but that it would also provide gains to workers who would not necessarily be the focus of a minimum wage, such as tipped workers and workers in households earning more than the median income. They found that half of the workers receiving a pay increase do not live in the city, and that only $1 and $4 paid by city consumers and businesses would benefit the targeted groups. They also concluded that perhaps job growth would be stunted, and that of the 150 new jobs that would have been created over the next 5 years, that the job growth would be in the neighborhood of perhaps only 10 to 75,000 jobs. They also indicated that labor costs would increase from 9 to 11.5% for personnel and laundry services, food services, and administrative and support workers. Beacon report basically concludes that the proposal would have significant negative impacts, that the benefits would be small with only 1/4 going to the targeted group, and the cost of the city would be very high by erasing potential job growth. The report also indicates some mitigating factors if the city were to move forward on a minimum wage proposal, such as reducing the size of the increase, eliminating tipped workers, extending the phase-in period, eliminating future CPI adjustments, and other mitigation factors. The Economic Roundtable report was commissioned by the American Federation of Labor. It found that LA is ahead in wage inequality and lags in wage growth. They focused on the 1525 minimum hourly wage proposal, and they found that for every $1 increase in wages, it would result in a $1.12 stimulus in the economy. They concluded that there would be approximately 25,000 jobs created in LA, with 46,000 new jobs in the region. They indicated that businesses would be able to make adjustments to prices and negligible changes in hours and benefits, and savings would result from lower turnover and productivity, would help balance the costs. They did find that 7 industries would need to be monitored, including food service, textile manufacturing, temps, guards, and janitorial, home health care, residential care, and child care, personal and repair services. The Economic Roundtable report basically concludes that the proposal will be an adjustment for businesses, but the result will be a bigger, more sustainable economy for LA and would be an engine for economic recovery in low-income neighborhoods. They also provide some best practices if the city were to move forward, such as phasing in wage increases, that the increases also keep up with the cost of living, that there be no exemptions or deferrals, and also that there be strong enforcement to address claims as well as meaningful sanctions. Finally, there is another report that is pending at the request of the Chair of Economic Development Committee. The CAO and CLA were asked to commission a peer review of the studies. We did make a selection. 2 professors were hired, one from UCLA, the second professor from the University of Georgia, as well as RAND Corporation. We expect their study will be completed sometime in mid to late April.
Okay. Again, we appreciate your efforts on our behalf, and we look forward to your continued efforts. Okay, we're going to begin the public comment again. We just appreciate everyone for coming out this evening. Your comments are important as it helps shape the policy, shape the understanding of issues and concerns that you have. And we're going to ask first to hear from Gary Tobin, Stuart Waldman, Vic Birek, Terry Jackson, Michelle Gilstrip, Nicole Shahinian, and Alexa Cierno. I apologize for butchering the names.
Mr. Chairman, members of the
Mr.
council
Tobin.
and the committee, my name is Gary Tobin. I'm the president of the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce. I think there was several council members who made a very important statement just a few minutes ago, and that is that we need to make this work for everyone. And everyone includes the businesses in our community, and everyone includes their employees, especially those employees of small businesses. So I would urge you to keep that thought in mind as you fashion a solution, the solution you're looking for. Make this work for everyone and do it in a way that we don't inadvertently cause the loss of jobs while we're trying to improve everyone's livelihood. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Stuart Waldman, president of Vica. We represent small businesses, large businesses, and nonprofits. In fact, 10% of our members are nonprofits. I had a meeting with most of our nonprofit members, and they expressed deep concern, the majority of them, that this would impact the services that they're able to provide for their clients. They can't just raise prices on their clients. It just doesn't work that way. We're concerned that the $13.25 raise is at 47% over 3 years. It is just too much too soon, too quickly. No business can really sustain that easily. And the City Council would never do that for their own employees. We are also concerned that at this time with wage compression, when an employee makes $3, $4, $5 more than minimum wage, they expect to make it when whatever that minimum wage is. So it will increase costs not just on minimum wage employees, but on everyone.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening. I'm Vic Varick. I'm with the Universal City North Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. Increased income for all through a robust economy is a wonderful feeling, but forcing increased wages through legislation has horrible consequences. Increased wages obviously increase the cost of the products and services produced. When wages increase, so do the related costs. The FICA and Medicare taxes of 7.53%, and workers' compensation insurance of over 10%, and that's over 19% for hotel employees. Such costs cannot just be absorbed by the employer. When the lowest wages are increased, the wages of other employees need to be increased also. Either customers spend more to cover the price increases, costs are cut by including layoff of employees, or the business closes. Other businesses are discouraged from opening in such communities. When businesses close, people lose jobs. Just look at the areas where the minimum wage has been invoked.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, sir.
Good evening. I'm Michelle Gilstrap, Executive Director of Universal City North Hollywood Chamber. Our nonprofit's been around 105 years, and realistically, we cannot pay a minimum wage that you're asking us to pay in 2 years. You must look at that we also pay state payroll tax, federal tax, Medicare, workers' comp, unemployment costs, and all of these affect us, as well as small business. You need to work out a plan that's going to help small business owners. We want you to look at this with more study and at a slower pace, work in the minimum wage so that it helps our small business owners, our medium business owners, and our large business owners. 2 years is not enough time to raise the minimum wage as high as you have asked. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Terry Jackson. I am the past president of the Universal City North Hollywood Chamber. And basically, I kind of feel like a snake with two heads, okay? Because I would love to get a raise, and I think it would be awesome to get $15 an hour. On the other hand, I'm a small business owner, and this could cripple me. So quite frankly, I think that if we just tread carefully, I don't think that it's a bad idea, but I think you need to be cautious. You need to be careful because we already are having a lack of jobs. I mean, what good's a raise if I lose my job? So no job means nothing, right? So a raise isn't gonna help. And it's a great idea on the front, but I just hope that you keep small businesses, really small businesses like my own, in your heart and in your heads as you move forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Nicole Shahanian with the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. We were one of the first business organizations to support the mayor's 1325 increase proposal, but it needs to be done in a way that keeps our small businesses sustainable and grows our economy and job base. We are joined tonight by several of our Hollywood and East Hollywood small business owners and restaurateurs. I implore you to listen to their concerns that the proposal as is goes too far, too fast. We need to phase this in over a longer period of time to allow our small businesses to adjust and to secure the jobs of those currently employed. And we have to address the issues surrounding tipped wage earners. Although we know it's a state issue, it is nonetheless a very real impact on the restaurant industry that cannot be ignored. Total compensation needs to be addressed so we can ensure more equitable wage rates for all of our workers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments.
I'll just give one example. At $9 an hour, $1 in the door at my business pays 22 cents to labor, 65 cents to run the business, and 13 cents to me before taxes, insurance, my loan, my loan payment, and interest. That's 22, 65, and 13 equals $1. If the labor increases to $13.25 an hour, it's up 47%, equal to 10 cents per that dollar, meaning the current 22 cents I pay in labor now is going to change to 32 cents. There's only one place that can come, two places it could come from. My pay, which is 13 cents, so you take 10 cents that I have to now pay extra in wages and take it off of my 13, so I'm making 3 cents. That's equivalent to a 77% pay cut in my own personal income before I pay for my loan payment, my taxes, or anything like that. And I challenge the council here to use your wages as an example. At $175,000 a year, I believe is what you guys make, a 77% decrease in your wages would reduce your earnings by $134,000, leaving you with $41,000 a year. And that is the difference unless I raise my prices by not 2% or 0.5%, but 15% to even keep me even.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Next up, please, Rusty Hicks, Roy Saman, Noli Flores, Hassan DeCampo, Victor Naro, Irma Nunez, and Veronica Vargas.
All right. Good evening. My name is Rusty Hicks. I'm the Executive Secretary Treasurer of the LA County Federation of Labor and the co-convener for the campaign to raise the wage. I stand in strong support to raise the wage to $15 an hour as soon as possible, to enforce that wage and to give workers sick days. You know, it's, I think, fitting that we are here on the day in which we celebrate the life and legacy of Cesar Chavez, a man who dedicated his life to empowering workers all across this country. And he said that it wasn't about the grapes, it wasn't about the lettuce, it was about the people. Not about the grapes, not about the lettuce, it's about the people. So you have before you a pretty complicated issue. We're going to talk small business, nonprofits, tipped workers, different phase-ins, all kinds of stuff. It's certainly a complicated issue. But while we do that, let's not lose sight of the forest for the trees. We have to focus on the people who we're actually trying to help. The 750,000 people that are living in poverty, the 4 out of 5 that are experiencing some form of wage theft. So I ask you to keep in mind the people when you raise the wage to $15
Thank you for
an
your
hour
comments.
and enforce the wage.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening, folks. My name is Roy Saman. I'm a researcher with the LA Raise the Wage Coalition and the LA Alliance for a New Economy. I support raising the wage to 15 with strong enforcement. I wanted to talk a little bit about tipped workers. We're going to hear a lot about this today, and I want to get into it. We've done some research on this. When we hear the phrase total compensation, I think we need to keep in mind that it's better understood as implementing a permanent sub-minimum wage for thousands of workers in the city. But I think it's also important to talk about who's in the tipped workforce. It's critical to remember that tipped workers exist outside of the restaurant industry as well. Massage therapists, personal care assistants, folks doing eyebrows and nails, all of those people are tipped workers as well. And that's 40% of the tipped workforce here in the city. We've heard about how tipped workers don't necessarily need a wage increase, but our data shows that just 3% of tipped workers earn above a living wage. That's 70% of restaurant servers earning less than $13 an hour.
Thank you, sir.
Don't do it.
Thank you for your comments.
Muy buenas tardes, buenas noches. Gracias por la oportunidad. Mi nombre es Noé Flores. Soy cocinero por 20 años y sí estoy de acuerdo para subir el salario mínimo. Soy padre de familia y ganando aún un dólar más arriba del mínimo no me alcanza. Entre pasaje y renta se va mi dinero. Además, yo he manejado cocina, sé cómo hacer dinero. Ellos hacen dinero y de paso se caen con la propina de los trabajadores. Y quieren usar la propina como pago ahora, cuando es obligación del patrón, del manejador, repartir la propina entre los trabajadores y no excusa para dejar de pagar a sus empleados. Otra cosa muy importante quiero recalcar, yo fui víctima de robo de salario. Mi patrón me explotó y sigue abriendo negocios. Queremos parar eso. Necesitamos abrir una oficina, un 911 para reportar todos esos abusos. No podemos ir a Labor Commission porque no me dan break, porque no me pagan completo mi dinero. Lleva tiempo, es muy lento el proceso. Llevo 4 años reclamando mi dinero. Gracias.
Thank you.
I'm going to translate some of the remarks by Noe Flores. My name is Noe Flores. I'm a father, and I've also been a cook for 20 years. And I work, and I'm here today in support of $15 and enforcement. I work in charge of the whole kitchen, and I'm very familiar with how kitchens make money. The restaurant I work at, it makes a lot of money. And I want to speak about the issue of tips because I believe it's the responsibility of employers to share tips with people. It's not because tips are not wages, because it's not guaranteed. And I also want to talk about wage theft. I've been a victim of wage theft where I wasn't paid for overtime. I also didn't get breaks, and I went to the labor commissioner, and he wasn't able to collect his money.
All right, thank you.
Hello, my name is Hassan Nicholas. I am a small business owner of a cafe in Northeast Los Angeles. I am here in support of the $15 minimum wage and the end of wage theft. As a small business owner, it matters to me that my workers can support their families and live in thrivable communities. A $15 minimum wage for all is a step in the right direction. A sub-minimum wage is a step backwards. I want to make sure that my staff can sustain themselves, support their families, and I believe that supporting this one fair wage is not only going to support healthy communities, but also healthy businesses. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
My name is Irma Becerra Nunez, and since 1975, I've had a life credential teaching with Los Angeles Unified School District. I support raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. I've had the honor to work in diverse communities throughout Los Angeles City and County. I've seen how families have struggled working 1 or 2 jobs, trying to go to school at night, learning English, becoming citizens, developing new careers, and very often they are not able to spend the quality time with their children to help them succeed and close the success gap academically. And so if we want our children to succeed in education, we need to support the parents and the grandparents who are raising them. Raising the minimum wage is critical. When I was a college student, I was getting paid $10 an hour as a teaching assistant, and that barely paid for an apartment, my books, and other materials. I'm amazed how families can live on $9 an hour. It's really an outrage, and I support raising the minimum wage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairperson Price, council members, my name is Veronica Vargas. I am an executive for Homeboy Industries. Today I'm speaking on behalf of a partnership with my colleagues, LA Conservation Corps and Chrysalis. All of us are focused on lifting our program participants out of poverty. Each of our programs serves members of the community that have significant barriers to education and employment. Meaningful employment is the way out of poverty for them, and that's why we support a pathway to a higher minimum wage, and specifically the objectives of the mayor's proposal. Each of our 501c3s operate transitional jobs. These jobs and these programs provide limited-term job training to disconnected youth and adults with barriers to economic advancement due to limited educational attainment, mental health challenges, homelessness, and criminal backgrounds. Our programs invest significant resources to help prepare program participants for the transition to permanent employment. The cost of these additional resources are between $4 and $7 an hour and are funded from government and philanthropic support. These additional resources, combined with the state minimum wage, demonstrate that we are investing much more.
Thank you
for
very
your
much for your
consideration.
comments.
Good afternoon. My name is Victor Naro. I am a law professor at UCLA. I also teach in the labor studies program. I consider myself an expert on the area of wage theft and low wage work. I just want to, you're going to hear a lot about total compensation today. And my experience in the restaurant industry, studying the restaurant industry, is total compensation is a sub-minimum wage being compensated by other factors. And that's what it really is. And I just remind folks that California Labor Code 351 makes it clear you cannot apply tips towards your wages. California is one of the few states in the country where your tips do not factor in your wages. So that's something we need to be clear about, because you're going to hear a lot about tip credits as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we'd like to hear from Selwyn Yasowitz, Michael Darman, or Michelle Darman, Biff Naylor, Michaela Mendelson, Gary Morrow, Genevieve Hardison, and Joseph Centeno.
Good evening. My name is Selwyn Yasowitz. I'm one of the co-founders of a group of restaurants. In fact, I live in the 11th district, and we have one restaurant up the street here in Sherman Oaks. You know, we employ about 500, we have 500 incredible employees. We've been in business for 26 years. Of the 500, about 200 are directly tipped employees. I've heard some statistics over here, but it's a fact that our directly tipped employees make anywhere between $20 to $30 an hour. This is it's proven on credit card receipts, and we want to be in a position that we want to be able to share any increase, any minimum wage increase with the back of the house employees who really deserve those increases. If the minimum wage goes up to $13 or $15 an hour, we have no choice but to increase menu prices, and we can only increase menu prices by a certain amount. We'll force the customers to go to fast casual concepts where they don't have to tip. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening, council members. Good evening, all. My name is Michel. I work at Bottega Louis, downtown LA. We just wanted to come here and let everybody know that, of course, this is coupled already with federal and state benefits increases. We're getting ready for the $10 increase in July. We had already to proceed for layoffs, and we're already projecting a loss of over $120,000. For us, it's a business math issue as well as an ethical issue. We certainly do not want to use poorer ingredients while hiking prices. The internal benefits also for employees will disappear, such as a family meal and taking care of the parking costs, etc. We understand this is well-intentioned. We believe in it too. We understand the economics and the macroeconomics of a better demand and a better life. We just don't think that this can be a one-size-fits-all. Please review the implementation of such hikes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Gary Morrow, and I am the proud co-owner of a small family of local restaurants. The reality is that we already operate on a razor-thin profit margin, and the staffing reductions and aggressive menu price increases necessary to offset an additional $4 to $6 an hour in wages, I honestly believe would result in our inability to continue in business. What I find particularly frustrating is that much of the increase intended for minimum wage workers in fact goes to those tipped employees already earning well in excess of $15 an hour. Why are we giving employees already earning far above the minimum wage a pay increase in the name of increasing minimum wage? I also urge you to provide as long a phase-in period as possible to enable to make this work for both our guests and our employees. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michaela Mendelson. I am with my family, the owner of 6 restaurants, 2 in the city of Los Angeles. Our first one opened in 1988. Since that time, I've been strongly in support of all minimum wage increases, including the one that was done through the state, which was a 25% increase, the largest in the history of the state of California. I believe in taking care of my workers. I helped a number of them achieve their green cards at great risk to myself. But now, for the first time, I find myself opposing a minimum wage increase, and I don't want my workers to think that I don't support them and I don't appreciate their hard work and that the families they need to raise. But we need to keep our restaurants open, we need to pay our mortgages, and we need to put our kids through school too. And if minimum wage goes up the way you're looking at, we'll have to cut back. We've done the numbers with other restaurateurs. We'll have to cut back 20% in the number of hours within the next 2 years. A lot of people will lose their jobs. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi. We are here today as independent small restaurant owners and operators who fully support the mayor's plan to raise the minimum wage to $13.25. We are on the same side as those who seek a living wage. All of us started in this business as dishwashers, servers, and cooks, so we understand the daily demands placed on workers in this city. But having worked hard to get where we are means that we as employers cannot be forgotten. A total compensation plan which takes tips into account must be implemented so that the jobs we provide will not be lost and the businesses we built will not fail. We urge the City Council to work with the City Attorney to adopt a total compensation plan on the city level. The outcome without it is bleak. Our 4 restaurants currently operate at a 5% profit. With a raise in the wage, our labor in the front of house will need to be cut by 50% to retain any of that profit. In the back... Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm an owner of 4 small independent restaurants in downtown LA. I'm here today because I've worked very hard to build my businesses, and I now may be faced with a struggle to stay open. I support the mayor's plan to raise minimum wage to $13.25, but total compensation plan must be incorporated for tipped employees. I understand what it is to work a minimum wage job. I started in the restaurant industry as a dishwasher when I was 16, and now I'm 40. I understand the issues workers face because I've been there. Until I made the leap 4 years ago to open my own business, I would spend time at the coin store cashing my coins to pay for my bills. I am proud to say that I now employ 185 individuals, of which a number of those individuals' children have started in the workforce at the restaurants. The individuals are not just employees, but they've become family and depend on me for their livelihood. In order to absorb a 50% rise in labor, I would be faced with letting some of them go or closing the doors. A total compensation plan and gradual wage increase is the only way for my business to survive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Biff Naylor from Dupar's Restaurants, and have some of the staff with me. There's some more in the back there, wait staff and others who are making tips. I want to address it a little bit differently. I have not heard, and I'm the oldest guy here. We've been at this since 1938 or whatever. But I have not heard about the technology aspect of this. I spent a day up in Northern California looking at the tablet applications on the table, because we also operate in Las Vegas in the Union House, and we're discussing how we can save those jobs and not have them go to tablets like they're doing right now, and eliminating the wait staff. So the answer for me is I do not want to spend the money on the tablets. I do not want to change the way I do business with our tipped employees and so forth. And so the idea of wages all in or whatever they're promoting here is attractive, estimating about 10,000 jobs lost in the city of Los Angeles for tipped employees in the next 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Claudia Chiku, Zumi Mizokami, Juan Moran, Mar Martinez, Cynthia Jump, Juan Hernandez, and Ana Cisneros. Please come forward.
Buenas tardes, concejales. Mi nombre es Claudia. Soy madre soltera. Trabajo en la industria de restaurantes por 3 años.
Un momento, por favor.
Porque la señora va a interpretar para usted. So, por favor, pausa cuando habla. Si la señora va a venir ahorita para interpretar para usted.
My name is Claudia. I'm a single mother, and I've been working
Por 3 años en la industria de restaurantes.
in the restaurant industry.
La gente piensa que soy rica porque gano $9 y recibo tips. Tips que no son seguros y tips que tengo que compartir con mis compañeros.
People think that I'm rich because I'm making $9 an hour and I get some tips, so they think that tips are making me rich.
Si fuera rica, tal vez no calificaría para recibir estampillas. Me duele mucho que en un día como hoy tan especial la gente, ustedes apoyen todavía a personas que se hacen ricas a costillas de nosotros.
So I'm very sad that on this special day, you are supporting people that they are becoming rich on behalf of our work. So I'm sorry about that. This is a special day, and we're not honoring that.
Me gustaría también que enforzaran las leyes para que nos dejen de robar nuestros salarios. Muchas gracias.
So I would like you to enforce the law so we can get a wage increase. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Zumi Mizokami. I'm a restaurant worker. I've worked in the industry for over 10 years as a barista, a prep cook, a server, a bartender. I fully support a wage increase to $15 an hour and also to end wage theft and enforce the law to end wage theft. In every single restaurant that I've worked in, I've gotten my wages stolen from me. So when I'm making a minimum wage, I'm actually not even making minimum wage because my wages are being stolen from me. A portion of them are. So I fully support that. Restaurant workers work at least 2 jobs. People leave one shift to go to a next shift. I have no empathy for restaurant owners who make a lot of money based from the people that are running their restaurants and working really hard to make those restaurants stay open. A sub-minimum wage is absurd. It's not mandatory for anybody to leave a tip on the table or a tip in the jar. So how is that going to be guaranteed as a part of a wage?
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Good afternoon. My name is Mar Martinez. I work at the Garment Workers Center. I'm here in support of 15 and enforcement. In Los Angeles, there already exists a sub-minimum wage. LA garment workers are paid through a piece rate, which means that for about 8 cents a piece, garment workers will sew a shirt or they'll iron a dress or something. On average, this means that garment workers are getting paid about $3.50 per hour. This is only legal because employers are supposed to recompensate the difference between the piece rate wage and the minimum wage. But this rarely happens. I've only seen it happen one time for a worker that had to meet a quota of 100 pieces per hour, which is nearly impossible. Right now, there is no minimum wage in the garment industry, and there is no minimum wage because there is no enforcement of that minimum wage. If you want a sub-minimum wage, like the one in the garment industry, like a piece rate, then that means that workers are going to have to work through their lunches, through their breaks, work obscene amounts of hours to even meet something close to the minimum wage. So right now, we don't need another sub-minimum wage. We need wage enforcement for garment workers and all the wage workers.
Thank you very much.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Juan Moran. Ya tengo experiencia en la industria por más de 10 años. Y
Momento.
No. Oh, now. Okay, thank you. Okay, my name is Juan Moran, and I have been 10 years in the industry.
Y ahora en este momento yo apoyo el mínimo de $15 y el alto robo de salario.
Now I am in support of the $15 an hour.
He podido experimentar tantas cosas que no me terminaría un minuto. Las personas que están ahí trabajan 3 trabajos. He conocido hasta cuatro trabajos que han tenido personas.
I have experienced so many bad things that it will take you more than a minute to explain to you. And I have known of people that have been working 3 and even 4 jobs to be able to survive.
Las propinas son muy importantes para todos y hay dueños que simplemente se aprovechan en ese sistema quebrado.
Tips are very important for the employees, and many employers take advantage of it.
Ahora puedo entender que en esos momentos es una gran oportunidad para todos y ser igual.
So now I understand this is a great opportunity for all of us to be equal.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Cynthia, and I came into the food and beverage industry about 17 years ago as a bartender and worked full-time for 7 years. At that time, my employer was appreciative enough of me to give me $12 an hour. Very appreciative of it at that time, and especially so today. Making the decision to come back into the industry 3 years ago because I decided to be the caregiver for my mother so she doesn't have to go into assistant care. And I also take care of my grandchildren for my daughter to go back to school. I rely on a part-time job to pay for my bills. My employer is a very prominent restaurant group, and I work in a very affluential part of downtown LA. My employer thinks that $9 an hour plus my tips should suffice for my hourly pay, which is great when that works. But I'm here to tell you I can't rely on tips. Sometimes I only get a few dollars and walk away with $10 in my pocket last shift.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ana Cisneros. I'm a nonprofit attorney and longtime advocate of low-income workers and working-class families. I can tell you from my years of fighting on behalf of these communities that this idea of quote-unquote total compensation or quote-unquote tip credit is detrimental to the rights of workers, and it's an attempt to circumvent our long-established laws that are intended to protect some of the most vulnerable workers in Los Angeles. As it has been stated, the Labor Code explicitly states that the tips are the sole property of the employee to whom they are given. In fact, numerous courts have held that crediting tips against minimum wage is an unfair business practice. Having advocated for workers in industries in which they are perhaps only paid in tips, they're not even paid a wage, or where their tips are stolen by the supervisors or the employers or the managers, I find that this tip credit or total compensation is a dangerous misnomer and an even more dangerous concept that will only lead to sub-minimum wage within tipped industries. Let us not endorse a practice that the legislator, the courts, and the people have deemed unfair and unlawful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Buenas noches, señores concejales. Mi nombre es Juan Hernández. Estoy aquí vengo a apoyar a 15 la hora y un alto al robo de salario. Les quiero pedir que sea un salario mínimo igual para todos, sin intervenir, y trabajadores que reciben propina.
Excuse me, señor, momento.
Porque no vamos a cortar todo. Okay. Dice, good afternoon, councilmen. My name is Juan Hernandez. I'm here in support of the $15 an hour and to stop the wage, how they steal the wages for us. Siga, señor Hernández.
Porque las propinas sabemos que no son estables para todos ni estables todos los días. Yo trabajo en la industria de carguacheros durante 10 años.
Okay, so I wanted to explain to you that tips are not something constant, and sure, it changes, and I have been working for 10 years.
Y yo vivo la realidad de lo que se vive y lo que ahorita ganamos a 9 la hora. Eso no los alcanza para pagar nuestra renta y para salir con los niños tal vez un día por mes a pasear.
So now with $9 an hour is not enough to pay all our bills and the rent, and not even to take our children for one day at a month to go out with them.
Y en esta industria de carguacheros es donde podemos mirar que hay empleadores que abusan de las propinas de sus trabajadores.
In this car wash industry, we can see the abuse of all these employers.
Porque todavía podemos ver que algunos empleadores reúnen todas las propinas de sus empleados y en la jornada del día ya no les entregan lo que les
we can see that all the tips that have been collected during the day by the employers, they will not be able to distribute it, or they don't want to distribute it with the employees at the end of the day.
Gracias por darme la oportunidad.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, next up, Matt Sutton, Paul Rodriguez, Richard Loguercio, Robert Rodin, Ashley Robley, Lynn Davidson, and Dale Ma.
I thank you for having this meeting here in the San Fernando Valley. I'm a lifelong resident and employer. According to Mayor Garcetti's Berkeley study, the wage increase he's proposing can be offset by a menu price increase of 4.1%. If it's so easy to pass on price increases, the CEO of McDonald's would not have lost his job over a measly 3% decline in sales. You would never see a business close because of not having enough cash to pay the bills. I got my first job while in high school with McDonald's. In today's economic climate, I've seen my business reduce employment roles from 172 down to 117 employees as expenses were cut, prices were increased, and sales declined when customers came less frequently. If the minimum wage becomes a living wage, opportunities for inexperienced job applicants will become scarce. As expenses increase, automation will become an attractive option to more industries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Chairman, committee members, and council members. My name is Matt Sutton. I'm with the California Restaurant Association. I'd like to briefly touch on two issues. We encourage you just to be really smart and targeted about this. We've had discussions with each of you or your offices for the last 6 months, and I think nowhere in any of those discussions has anyone from the restaurant community suggested sub-minimum wage. So on the total comp piece, what we're talking about with total compensation is we're saying if you're a tipped employee and you're making at least the city minimum wage, then you get the state minimum wage. So we are guaranteeing a server's wage at the floor. Obviously, in many cases, they're going to make well above that and take home much more than that, and there's others here to speak to that. The second issue is a teen wage. Teen unemployment goes up when these minimum wages go up to super levels. So I would encourage you to think about that and be targeted about that, because the data does show that that's happened in San Francisco and San Jose, where we have the two highest minimum wages. And finally, the Brookings Institute has come out with a study that also shows that this exacerbates the problem. So we have a way to alleviate that on both fronts.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Richard Laguercio. I'm the owner of Town & Country Event Rentals in Van Nuys. We have 450 full-time employees, good-paying jobs. Some of the stuff I'm hearing tonight is terrible, the way people treat their employees. I fortunately treat my employees, I think, pretty good. I give them a lot of opportunity. We start them off at $10, 90 days, they get a review. We reward them for contributing their talents. They work hard, they make overtime, they grow. We're a growing company, but this, between workers' compensation and all the other stuff that makes it so difficult to be in business, why anybody would want to even be in business in California and Los Angeles, for that matter, I'd seriously think about just packing up the bags and leaving. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members. I'm Robert Rodin. Since 1943, the California minimum wage has been raised on an average of every 3 years. The largest rise was 44% in 1947, increasing from 45 to 65 cents an hour, the minimum wage. All but 4 out of 24 increases have been greater than the change in CPI and therefore have gone beyond helping workers keep up with general costs. The number of increases indicates that increasing minimum wage has really done nothing to improve the short or long-term circumstances of workers. For workers to improve their economic circumstances, they must enhance their value by learning English, acquiring either technical or administrative skills to offer to their employers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm Lynn. I own an independent fast food restaurant. I have 78 employees. All my employees start at $11.25 an hour. The only employees that stay at that wage are part-time employees. My employer portion of payroll taxes for a full-time employee ranges from $3,730 a year to over $10,000 a year for those in management. The workers' compensation for a full-time employee is $3,269 per employee. The cost is based on $100 of payroll, and this just seems to go up all the time. The medical and dental benefits are increasing. The cost for our full-time employee, the employer portion, is $2,645 per year, up to $18,648 a year for management. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, how are you guys? I'm Ashley Roby. I've been in the restaurant industry for about 20 years now. I currently work with a family local restaurant group that focuses both on fast casual and full service hospitality. We're a passionate group that's dedicated to family environments, both within our company and providing that for our guests. I would like to say that I do not think that any person working full-time should live in poverty, but I do ask that we consider a training and or teenage wage for those for their first jobs. I think we all know that the restaurant industry specifically provides a lot of first jobs, and it helps them begin their journey in the workforce. In addition, we ask that you do consider a full compensation for our tipped staff members, as they, with that ability, it will be able to free up the compensation for the other staff members in the back of the house that are non-tipped employees.
Madeline Alfano Marie's Italian Kitchen, and I'm in favor of the total compensation because I believe our heart of the house is just that, the heart of the house, and the front of the house reaps many of the benefits of what's happening.
Thank you. Thank you both for your comments.
Good afternoon. Thank you for letting me speak here tonight. I own 3 businesses here in the Valley, 3 restaurants, one of them here in Van Nuys. I have approximately about 100 employees, all of which I love very much. I would not be here in this position if it weren't for them. But we must be realistic as far as minimum wage increase is concerned. This would definitely cause a reduction of full-time employment. As it is now, I have tons of applications on my desk right now of cooks needing more hours, needing more shifts, because they're not getting them in other places, because they don't want to go over 30 hours, because they don't want to give them overtime. Now, how increasing minimum wage will improve this is, I have no idea. Does not make sense to me. I understand poverty is a problem. Minimum wage, upping minimum wage to $13 or $15 an hour is not going to help people who don't have jobs. It's not going to help people who work 15 to 20 hours a week. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we've got Kathy Depp, Zania Torres, Eric Arce, Jay Slynn, Alex Riza, David Rodriguez, Veronica Padilla. Please come forward.
Good evening. I'm Kathy Deppy, here in support of $15 with enforcement, representing 9 to 5 working women in Los Angeles chapter. First, there's a serious wage gap faced by women. We already suffer wage theft. Living wage that we can actually collect is a real necessity. Until women can achieve equal pay with men, wage theft will cut into our pay meaner and deeper. Second, I want to say tip workers are 70% women, and they earn an average of $15,000 a year. To pay a sub-minimum wage is wage theft and an attack on women workers. Why would you want to institutionalize low wages and cement the gender wage gap even more? Imagine the older waitress relegated to the back table and the skimpier tips, whose complaints only result in her getting her hours cut. A sub-minimum wage for her acts as an automatic clock out when business is slow. And other women are vulnerable too. So please raise the wage with enforcement.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Anaida Torres, soy madre soltera de una niña de 13 años.
Good afternoon. My name is Edaina Torres. I'm a single mother, and I'm the mother of a 3-year-old daughter.
Apoyo el salario mínimo y estoy contra el robo de salario.
I support the raise of the minimum wage, and I wanted to stop the wage theft.
En mi trabajo no nos dejan tanta propina como dicen. A nosotros nos dan el 2 o el 5% de propina. Rara vez nos dan el 10 o el 15% y a veces no nos dejan nada de propina. Casi
We
por
don't
lo
get that
regular.
much tips in our job. Sometimes only get 2 or 3% of it. Sometimes we get 5%, but that is not that often.
A nosotros nos quitan el 15% de la propina que sacamos, nos quitan el 15% para dársela a nuestros compañeros cocineros, pero a ellos solo le dan una cora por cada hora que hacen del dinero que nos quitan a nosotros.
From the
y no
tip
nos
that we
quitan eso.
receive is being deducted 15% for the cooks, but they only get a quarter for every hour work.
Yo tuve la experiencia de trabajar sobre el sistema de salario de meseros bajo y solo de vivir con pura propina en Atlanta, Georgia. Pero a mí allá no me alcanzaba para nada el salario, entonces me regresé mejor para acá, para Los Ángeles.
I work on the system on tips in Georgia, at Atlanta, Georgia, and I was not able to pay my bills or my rent, so that's the reason I got back to California.
Entonces, sí, nos pueden apoyar para que nos paguen a todos por igual. A
So
$15
I support that we
la
can get
hora.
an equal payment to all of us.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Hi, how's it going? My name is Eric Arce. I'm here today because my parents can't be. Both my parents are in their 60s and they're still working. They worked half of their adult life in restaurants, and I knew what it looked like to see them struggle. They're still working in minimum wage occupations, and they're still struggling. To be in their 60s and still working not only frustrates me, but angers me. How can you save for retirement on poverty wages? It's impossible. It cannot be done. So I'm asking right now for not only raising the minimum wage, but also for tip wage workers as well. There's constantly a division. It can be done to raise both of them. We're here in the city because we're facing crisis, and crisis especially for workers. And if we don't do something, the haves and the have-nots, it's going to get worse and worse. Something needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jason. I'm a Van Nuys resident, and when I owe the tax authorities money, I just can't change my name and not pay it. However, as an attorney, the employers that I go after, this is what they do day in and day out. They have wage judgments, they owe monies to all sorts of government authorities, yet they just get a new business license and a new name. And this is why, as an attorney for a nonprofit organization, the Wage Justice Center, I strongly support enforcement so that the law will have actual teeth. And I also support the $15 minimum wage because from the United States to Europe to Japan, right now we are facing disinflation and deflation, and this is exactly why the United States and Europe is printing money to keep the economy going. So the CPI will not be affected as the fearmongers speak. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Alex Ressa. I taught at San Fernando High School for 34 years. First, I'd like to express my appreciation to Councilmember Price, Councilmember Martinez, and Councilmember Bonin. This is a historic time. We have an unprecedented economic situation not seen since the 1920s. The biggest challenge facing our society is not race relations. It's not even the environmental issues. The biggest challenge facing this country is we are becoming an oligarchy instead of a democracy. We have forgotten that the engine of economic growth is the hardworking people, people like the gentleman who spoke here a few minutes ago. That is what makes America the beacon not only of democracy, but of political equality. We know from political science, when you have an economy that is dominated by a few, democracy suffers.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is David Rodriguez, and I am here on behalf of Pacoima Beautiful. Our nonprofit organization strives for equality in the Northeast Valley, and we strongly believe that raising the minimum wage is an ideal way to achieve sustainability in our communities. Thank you, and we hope to count on your support.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Veronica Padilla, and I'm the Executive Director of Pacoima Beautiful. We've been around since 1996, and through our events and programs, we service about 10,000 people every year. And I'm here to say that Pacoima Beautiful supports raising the wage. We see this as an important issue that impacts the quality of life in our communities. We know that in order to sustain our movement towards a healthier and just environment, we need to be able to sustain ourselves. We see raising the wage as an important step towards creating a healthier and more sustainable Los Angeles. So hope to count on your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Reuben Gonzalez, Nancy Hoffman, Cynthia Langley, George Aboud, Nicholas Montano, Joy Gonzalez, and Matt Lynch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Reuben Gonzalez. I'm here on behalf of the LA Area Chamber of Commerce. We want a better quality of life for the working poor in Los Angeles. We want real affordable housing available in the city of Los Angeles, and for that matter, more stock and all of housing in the city of Los Angeles. We want a better education system so that minimum wage jobs are just an entry point into the job market and not something you have to stay in for your entire career. We want a true economic development approach in the city of Los Angeles. We had a blueprint, it disappeared. We want all those things. So you don't hold the moral high ground by supporting a policy proposal that actually doesn't make any of those things happen and, in fact, makes it harder to reach those goals. So please stop, look at the data, and come up with a plan to increase the pie, to develop our economy, and to raise wages in a sustainable way that doesn't close the doors of businesses, especially the small ones.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Cynthia Longley. I've been in the restaurant business for 30 years. I know there's a lot of back and forth about tips, and there is a lot of confusion about it. There's the business that paid payroll tax on tips. There's the employee that paid tax on tips. If you have overtime in a large event, then overtime is based on the gratuity that evening, and you have to pay your employee based on that gratuity. If somebody loses their job and they have to go to unemployment, their check is going to be based on also what they were making for tips. So I don't know what the answer is, but it seems in many cases wages are counted, or tips are counted as wage. So that needs to be figured out. And hopefully we're going to look at that, or you're going to look at that and see that there are many servers and bartenders who make $60,000 a year over managers. And then there's the guy who works at the car wash who makes not nearly as much as that. Something needs to be figured out. We're asking police to figure that out.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Hoffman-Banyak, and I'm the CEO of the Greater San Fernando Valley Chamber of Commerce, and we represent businesses all across the San Fernando Valley. We do a survey of our members, and they range everyone from nonprofits to independent private hospitals, janitorial companies, pet care, boarding, you name it. And of the members that we surveyed, 74% of them are against the minimum wage as is currently presented. The majority feel that the increase needs to be done gradually over a period of time, and they also feel that it needs to maybe be reduced. 52% of our members have 9 employees or less. And of the ones that we surveyed as well, 54% of them already pay their employees over the minimum wage. What we're asking is that you take time to study this and look at it so it will be less detrimental to business.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm a local independent business owner, and I want to say that we're all saying the same thing in this room in very different ways. We all have the same idea. We all want to increase the wage. We all want to do it the right way. We all don't want wage theft. We all want enforcement, so we keep repeating it. On the tip issue, it's very important to note that the sub-minimum quote is a wrong statement. It's mendacious and misleading to say that, because the wage will be reached whatever the minimum is no matter what. So there is no sub-minimum. We should stop saying that. The 3 economic reports that were published, they were not exhaustive on the micro level. All of us restaurants will come to your offices tomorrow with numbers if you want to see them so we can prove the real data. And to all the workers in this room who are facing wage theft and other issues, please come and tell me where you work so I can take care of the issue for you tomorrow. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nicolas Montaño. I own a restaurant in Chatsworth. I was at the hearing in Los Angeles just last week, and don't want to repeat myself. We've been in business for many, many years. Most of our employees, in fact, more than half, have been with us more than 10 years. We encourage the paying over the minimum wage. But definitely, we need to focus on what these tipped employees get, and plus, some of the outcome that this minimum wage is going to create for some of those businesses like mine that contribute to the community, that contribute to all the charities that we do. We've been in business for over almost 50 years, and I want you to just please look at this thing and think about this and go slow. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joey Gonzalez. I'm a director of operations for a small chain of fast food restaurants here in LA. We have 4 restaurants. 60 to 70% of our employees are high school students and people that are just entering the workforce. A minimum wage increase like this would stop me from being able to employ those people and introducing them to the workforce. We would have to hire people that walk in the door with all the skills needed, and we would not be able to bring those young people out into the workforce. On top of which, there's no doubt about it, we would have to cut hours for the people that do work for us now. We would have to raise our menu prices. And the worst part is we would not be creating jobs. We would be stopping those young kids from getting jobs and starting out in the workforce like I did 30-something years ago and worked my way up to the position I'm at now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Matt Lynch. I'm president of Build Rehabilitation Industries, a public charity in the city of Sylmar. Bill's mission for 47 years has been to train and find employment for people with developmental and intellectual disabilities. In order to train them to find them employment, we have to go out and bid on work to bring in-house. When we're bidding on work, we're competing with the cities of Burbank, Simi, Santa Clarita, and other areas outside of the city. If we cannot obtain the work for our people to work on, then we will not be able to train them. Right now, we have 200 people with developmental disabilities in our facility that we are training. We presently have enough work, but if the city increases the minimum wage to a point where we are no longer competitive with the other cities, then we will have to let go 200 people with developmental disabilities and 10 staff members. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, council members, for your service on this very important issue. Now, some of you know me. My name is Paul Anand, and I am a community advocate, and I sit on the Van Nuys Neighborhood Council right here downstairs. I'm also a small business owner, and I sit on the 7-Eleven Leadership Council, and that Leadership Council represents over 1,000 7-Eleven stores in the greater Los Angeles area. So, we just want to make a point that we are not Wall Street. We are Main Street. I mean, my mom and pop are the original mom and pop stores. And now we're franchisees, and we're in these franchise contracts that are based on percentages. We only take home 3 to 4% of the total, and as sales go up, it only benefits the franchisor. It doesn't benefit us. So we need your help to protect struggling small businesses, such as Subway owners and 7-Eleven franchisees, who employ like as many as 20 employees. So that's what we need your help with. Thank you so much.
Okay, next up, Lodia De Leon, Ryan Hughes, Severina Pablo, Peria Leguanas, Rosemary Jenkins, Antonio Bernabe, and Sharon Brown, excuse me.
Hello, council members. My name is Loida De Leon, and I'm here representing North Valley Caring Services. We're a nonprofit organization in North Hills. NVCS serves a very impoverished community where 48% have incomes below the federal poverty level. We meet the needs of our community by offering educational programs as well as outreach services. NVCS supports the $15 with enforcement and earned sick days. Our organization decided to support this platform because we know that it is something that will benefit our participants who are often struggling to make ends meet. Many of them come to our food pantry and our breakfast program because they struggle to put food on the table. Our participants often work 2 jobs, have rigid work schedules, and low pay that often makes it very difficult for them to support themselves and their family. We also know that if this policy passes, our participants will also use their extra cash in the local economy as they shop in stores no farther than 2 to 3 miles, since many of them walk and do not have their own transportation. And we hope to count on your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Severiana Pablo.
Good afternoon. My name is Severiana Pablo.
Estoy aquí representando a la comunidad de North Hills.
I'm here to represent North Hill community.
También estoy aquí para apoyar el salario que sea de $15
I'm also here to support the $15 an hour
y a dar un alto al robo de sueldos.
and to stop that theft on the wages.
También supe que cuando suben el salario dicen que los habitantes de North Hills o de otras comunidades van a gastar el dinero a otros lados.
I have heard that when we have the increase on salaries, many of the people are going to spend the money in other places.
Pero no es así. Solo les alcanza para comprar lo que se necesita para
But that is not true. That's only enough to pay what we need
para darle de comer a sus hijos.
to feed their own children.
Estas 2 niñas están
These
representando
2
a los
children
niños
and representing all the children
de la comunidad.
of the community.
Gracias, muy buenas tardes.
Thank you and good afternoon.
Y espero que sea de $15.
I hope we
Thank
can
you.
go to the $15.
Gracias.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Me llamo Perla Lagunas.
My name is Berna Laguna.
Yo vivo en North Hills.
I live in North Hills.
Estoy aquí porque creciendo, desde niña he vivido con el salario. Mi mamá le pagaban muy poquito.
From a
Ella
very
era
early age, I have been learned to live with a very low salary.
costurera, le pagaban a 2-3 centavos para
She
coser.
only was able to get like 2 or 3 cents for any piece of
Vivimos
cloth
en-
that she was sewing.
Vivimos en mucha pobreza y
We live in a
estoy
very
aquí para apoyar el
Bad
fin,
situations,
que
and
a
I'm
que
here to
suban
support
al
the $15 an hour.
y que haya un lugar donde uno pueda ir a hacer complaints para que
And I hope we have a place
pare
that
el
we can
robo
go and
de-
make complaints when these are not fulfilled.
También supe que dicen que uno de los estudios, que si nosotros los trabajadores nos suben el sueldo, que el dinero se gastará fuera del área. Yo soy testigo porque nosotros todo el tiempo compramos en el área y apoyamos nuestras tiendas.
One of the studies says that
nuestra
we,
ciudad.
when we get the increase, we spend the money in other places, but I'm a witness that we only spend the money where we live, very close where we live.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Esperamos su apoyo.
And we need your support.
Muchas gracias.
Hello, my name is Antonio Bernabé. I'm a community organizer for Chirla here in the San Fernando Valley. I live in Van Nuys. So we do organize low-income families. And believe me, they need this $15 to be a reality, and also enforcement, because they are victims of wage theft. They are just living from paycheck to paycheck. They are from one paycheck to be homeless. And we don't have the money to go to eat to all these restaurants that are speaking here. So we hope one day if you give us the $15, we got the money to go to the restaurants, because we don't have that money. So we are the majority of the people of the San Fernando Valley. All the families that I do organize live in Panorama City and Van Nuys, Silmar, Pacoima. So we really need this to be a reality. So please do it as soon as possible for the immigrant families of the San Fernando Valley, for the poor families, and for the decent workers and good workers of this community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Rosemary Jenkins raised the wage campaign and a 40-year resident of the Valley. Picture, if you will, dominoes that have slid down. The one on the very bottom is the low-wage worker. If we look at that in reverse, as that worker gets a minimum wage of at least $15 an hour, which amounts to $34,000 a year and a livable wage, he or she will spend money in the community, more people will be hired at more businesses, the economy will be expanded. But something that we need to take into consideration is we can't phase this in. If that $15 an hour isn't phased in until 2019, it would be like maybe $12 an hour. Then we have to take into consideration cost of living. And the people that are expanding their companies to 10 restaurants, maybe if they did 9, they would be able to pay their workers what they ought.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Hughes. I'm here tonight on behalf of the San Fernando Valley Young Democrats. Our club strongly supports a $15 an hour minimum wage, and we support multiple measures with different phase-in times. We just really care that workers are getting some more money in their pockets. One thing that, so we've talked a lot about the dollar amount tonight. We've talked about enforcement. One thing we haven't really talked about in some of the proposals are sick days. It's great that the state has given workers 3 sick days, but we think that there needs to be a good number more sick days. Sick days are when people can take care of themselves, people can take care of their kids, and take care of an elderly family member. The promise of healthcare reform is an empty promise if you cannot get the time to actually go and see a doctor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Brown, and I'm a County Small Business Commissioner, the owner of ICDC Publishing, a small business, and I'm also the chairman of the Greater Valley Black Business Association. I started my business over 25 years ago, so I know from experience what it's like to grow and build a business. While the cost of living in Los Angeles is among the highest, Angelenos make less than workers in other comparable cities. The cost of living in San Francisco is 20% higher, yet their median earnings are 70% higher. A realistic living wage in Los Angeles would be more like $30 an hour for a family of 4 with 2 kids and 1 working parent. Poverty is bad for both humanity and business, and approximately 2 million Angelenos live in poverty. Increasing the minimum wage will be a stimulus that will help workers thrive, help businesses like mine recruit and retain talented workers, make our world-class city that much more appealing, make the city's economy more sustainable and inclusive, and morally and ethically, it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Maria Galvan, and I'm a volunteer of Chirla. I live on Manais for 15 years. We have a small business, and we think the workers deserve to have a comfortable life. So we pay more than minimum wage right now. So if we, as a small business, can do it, the owners of big business can do too. This proposal is going to be good for workers. The valley economy is going to increase. And my family and I say, raise the wage. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, please, Martin Cooper, Jan Sobel, David Benz, Mark Kulkas, Makai Wechsler, David Rossoff, and Daniel Flores.
I'm Marty Cooper, and more than 50 years ago, pardon me, I was a member of the Boys Club of Venice, and today I'm vice chairman of the Boys and Girls Club of the West Valley. Our club has 3,000 members who are all young people who we take care of every day after school. A young person can be a member of our club and come to the club every day after school for $35 for the whole year. 81% of our families come from below the poverty line, so we understand what it's like to be among the working poor. At the same time, we urge you all to look correctly at the issue that nonprofits such as ours face. If we are forced to be part of the proposal as it is now, our club will have to raise $400,000 more over the next 5 years than we currently are capable of doing. One of the poll takers from the Berkeley group, in response to that statistic given to her, said that we should just go out and raise more money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jan Sobel. I'm president and CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of the West Valley. As Marty said, we have 3,000 members. 81% of our families live below the poverty level. 250 days a year, we offer programs like homework help. We help with academics and college-bound athletics, theater arts, computers, robotics, things that these children do not have. If you raise the minimum wage in the manner that you're now approaching, in such a fast period of time, we will not be able to raise that money. So what do? We have to lay off between 15 and 20 employees in the next 3 years. What does that mean? 400 children every single day will not have a place to go. We have 900 children that participate in our program at 8 locations throughout the valley. Please don't make me tell those parents there's no place for their children to go.
Thank you for your comments.
My name is David Benz. I'm the president and one of the co-founders of Von Benz. We're one of the world's leading manufacturers of custom-made furniture for 5-star hotels. We've been in business since 1986 in Los Angeles. We employ about 61 people in downtown LA. There have been major changes in the furniture industry through the years. When China joined the World Trade Organization, most furniture companies left the U.S. for China, putting tens of thousands of Americans out of work. We've been committed to our LA staff, and we shifted the type of work that our LA factory does in favor of the kind of one-of-a-kind special furniture that we do better than the Chinese. The Great Recession was brutal to the furniture industry. Our profit margins shrank to nearly zero, and we hung on by a thread. The recession may be over, but our margins are not back. Our customers are used to paying the low recession prices. We're lucky to get a 5% profit margin. Not only are we competing with China, in addition, we're competing with places like North Carolina, where the minimum wage is currently $7.25 an hour. We have 24 employees who earn between minimum wage and $13.25 an hour. If the minimum wage is increased to $13.25 an hour, the workers making up to $13.25 are going to be expecting a wage increase to reflect their skill relative to what we pay the unskilled workers. Furniture manufacturing is a career where a person with only a high school education learns his or her trade by becoming an apprentice. A worker who starts with us at minimum wage could over time become
Please wrap up your comments, sir.
I'm sorry?
Please summarize your comments.
Okay, well, basically, workers that start at minimum wage over time can make over $75,000 a year with us. And with this increase, we could be forced to move either to Commerce or Vernon or to Las Vegas or other places where people are trying to lure us to leave LA.
All right. Thank you very much for your comments.
Hi, I'm Mark Kulkas. I own 4 quick-service restaurants here in LA. As other people have noted, restaurants are going to be the most affected by this. My labor costs are a full third of my costs. In the past year, I've been hit by 3 things: Obamacare, the 3 additional sick days all employees get, and the state raised minimum wage. I'm not Rocky Balboa. There's only, so many punches I can take before I go down. Another point I'd like to make is about our workforce being more than half of them are below the age of 21. So we get a lot of people their first jobs. If the minimum wage were to go up to 15, that would end. I'd be looking for people whose aspirations are to be a professional dishwasher their whole life, because they'd be the steady employees. They would have a good wage and a good living, but all the people that are looking to improve themselves and are using my restaurants as a stepping stone toward, working while they go to school, I wouldn't be able to hire them.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments.
Hi, my name is Michael Wechsler, and I own a small restaurant in Grand Central Market in downtown Los Angeles. And one thing that I want to draw a distinction here is I feel that a lot of small business people and restaurateurs in particular are being painted in the wrong light. I'm not wealthy. I don't drive a fancy car. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment, and I work really hard. And I work really hard with the people who work with me, because they're the most important people in my business. And I say the people who work with me because I don't sit in an office. I sweat with them. I make sandwiches with them. I work with them every day. I wash the floors with them. I wash dishes with them 70 to 80 hours a week in my restaurant. And I don't pay any of them minimum wage because I don't think it's right. And I support the mayor's plan for the $13.25, but at $15 an hour, unfortunately, we'll be forced out of business. And to the gentleman who spoke before me who said that he would love to afford to be able to eat in our restaurants, you can eat in my restaurant for $10 to $12. So I encourage you to come before it's too late and I have to raise prices and you can't afford it.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks for having us tonight. My name is David Rossoff, and I was born and raised in the San Fernando Valley and went to high school here in Van Nuys. I've been operating restaurants in Los Angeles for over 20 years. Forgive me if I'm being repetitious on any of these points, but our group of independent restaurateurs is being portrayed as an opposition to the minimum wage increase, and this is simply not the case. We fully support the mayor's proposal to raise the minimum wage to $13.25, and yes, with a total compensation provision. This is not the same as a tiered minimum wage and not the same as what is being referred to as a sub-minimum wage. The tipped employees in our restaurants make well above the current minimum wage or the proposed minimum wages. These are not the individuals who need the pay increase. It is our cooks and our dishwashers, the hardworking employees in the back of our house. They need this raise. We are not entitled to share tips with those employees currently. Without a total compensation provision, many of the restaurants that helped to make Los Angeles such an exciting city to dine in today will go away. The result will be nothing but large chains and fast food restaurants. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having me here today. My name is Daniel Flores. I'm the general manager of Bestia Restaurant, which is located in downtown Los Angeles. I'm here today to voice my support for a total compensation provision for the mayor's proposed minimum wage. As someone who's worked both as a tipped employee and as a salaried manager, I fully support the increase proposed by the mayor to $13.25, but only if it includes total compensation. Our tipped employees are not the ones in need of a wage increase. Our line cooks, our prep cooks, and our dishwashers are. At Bestia, we support a minimum wage increase, but one that allows us to continue to employ the 114 people who we consider more than just employees. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Juan Gonzalez, Gustave Flores, Sandra Williams, Patricia Belasama, Joan Harper, Mark Morris, and Beatrice Medina.
Good evening. My name is Juan Salas. I'm the community organizer for Los Angeles Neighborhood Land Trust, and I'm here in support for the $15 with enforcement. My organization builds and maintains green and open spaces in neighborhoods that lack green and open spaces. We also We hold monthly meetings in our parks, which we've built from Palmdale all the way to Wilmington and everything in between. In our monthly meetings, we educate, train, and increase our residents' capacity to be neighborhood leaders so that they can then improve the quality of life in our communities. 2 examples of that is relationship building with LAPD as well as all of your council offices. One thing I've noticed in all of my parks is that our members want to be better leaders but don't have the time because they have to work 2 jobs. Today I invited local residents, but they all have to work to make ends meet. They also, I told them a week in advance about this meeting, and all of them, for fear of either repercussions from their bosses or from lack of getting replacements, couldn't make it today. With this raise, our leaders will not only have more money for their families, they will also have more time with their families, to spend with their families and in their community. With this raise, we can break the myth that our residents in poor neighborhoods don't care about their community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Mi nombre es Nestalí Flores.
My name is Catalina Flores.
Le doy gracias a los concejales que están aquí escuchando nuestros problemas.
I want to thank all the council
Yo vengo a
people
apoyar
here
el
to
salario
listen
de
to us.
$15 que está proponiendo el alcalde.
I'm here to support the $15 proposal of the mayor.
A 2 cuadras tengo un pequeño negocio.
About 2 blocks from here, I have a small business.
Cuando la gente gana más, gasta más.
When
Entonces,
people
nuestra
make
ciudad,
more money, they spend more money.
Nuestra ciudad subiría.
And our city will become better.
Si sube el sueldo, sería justicia.
If we have an increase on the salaries, that will be justice.
Porque subir el sueldo es justo por nuestra comunidad. Estoy oyendo lo que dicen que tienen problemas los empresarios si sube el sueldo.
Yeah, so I think that is having an increase in the salaries will be a just things to do. But I'm hearing all the small business owners and big business owners, all the issues and the problems that they have.
No sería problema porque sin la clase trabajadora ellos no tuvieran ganancias.
But I think will be no problem because without the working people, they will have no business. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Good evening. You called Patricia Belisama and Sandra Williams. We're both from the California National Organization for Women. So we'll compact both of our statements. So
thank you. Appreciate your
get
courtesy.
We are here in support of 15, 20, 25 plus enforcement, but also no exceptions, because the exceptions are women. The vast majority. The exceptions have always been women, and it's always been about service. It's always been about always thinking about that gendered work as just a little bit less valuable. And when we start to talk about tip work, how about we think out of the box and we just get rid of tips altogether? Because there's sexual harassment attached to tips. There's racial injustice attached to tips. Let's talk about a full wage, a fair wage for a fair day's work, and get rid of indiscriminate discrimination that is put in the customer's hands.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mark Morris, and I'm an interfaith leader in the San Fernando Valley and resident of Granada Hills. Sorry about that. I'm here on behalf of Clergy and Laity United for Economic Justice, who represents hundreds of clergy and faith leaders throughout the greater Los Angeles County who are committed to addressing economic justice. CLU's mission is to educate, organize, and mobilize the faith community to walk with workers and their families in their struggle for good jobs and dignity in the workplace. We are in full support of the $15 an hour wage theft enforcement, and earned paid sick days. And also, this is a crisis of spirit. I seem to be witnessing a lot of the crisis of imagination and the crisis of courage, and thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Joan Harper, and I am the Executive Director of Fair Trade Los Angeles. And when we purchase fair trade products in our grocery stores, what we're ensuring is that the worker in the developing country, the producer, the farmer, the artisan, is getting a fair wage, is being treated fairly, dignity of the work. They can stay home. What we're seeing here in Los Angeles, because of not purchasing those kind of products and the poverty that exists, we see the inequities that we have here, and I am also involved with Clergy and Laity United for Economic Justice. I have seen the struggles of those workers. It is very heartbreaking to see that they're trying to do the best for their family against such incredible odds. Again, I too as well believe that we need to be looking at the workers and giving them the dignity that they deserve, and the $15 an hour plus enforcement is a way to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Beatrice Medina, and I live in North Hollywood. I am a student at Los Angeles Valley College. I am a single parent of 3 teenagers, and I am here to give voice and advocate on behalf of every single person of the city of LA that could not be here today because they are currently at their second job working, that are right now commuting to their second job. Every single person that cannot be here today deserves a livable wage, a wage that they can use to meet the basic needs of their family. As the past president of the PTSA at Richard E. Byrd Middle School, I noticed that a lot of parents could not attend our school functions, our fundraisers, because they couldn't come because they were working. They had to work 12 to 14-hour shifts. And that is unfair that our students are suffering. Their academic achievement has suffered as a result of the wages that our parents are enduring. Thank you.
Thank you.
Buenas, mi nombre es Mauro Cruz.
My name is Mauro Cruz.
Les diré algo breve.
I will say something very briefly.
¿Por qué no existen los debates cuando nos suben la renta, el gas, los biles?
Why don't we have a debate when we have an increase of rent, utilities?
Y cuando pedimos un aumento por hora de $1, ponen el grito al cielo.
And when we ask for a $1 increase, there is a big uproar.
Es todo.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Philip Emhoff, Laura Yamanaka, MC Townsend, Terry Weeks, Elsie Swanson, and Kim Yin Wen. Please come forward. If your name was called, please come forward.
My name is Lori Yamanaka. I'm president of Team CFO, a small business located in Los Angeles that provides services to small businesses in LA, a financial base. I'm also a past president of NABO, National Association of Women Business Owners. I've served on the local chapter as well as the national chapter, and I also sit on the National Women's Business Council. I love the conversation here. I think everybody wants to have everybody have a fair wage, be able to make a living, support their kids, take them out once in a while. What I think is missing to this conversation is the small business owners, the manufacturers, the people who have already fled the country or LA or have gone to Texas. Many of my clients actually that I used to have as manufacturers actually last year moved to Louisville, Kentucky, and Texas. They're not here anymore. I have a client actually that is exporting to China and actually has a small operation here. They're going to move the rest of it because they can't afford to compete nationally. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, I'm representing MC Townsend. She's the current chairwoman of BizFed, the LA County Business Federation, for which I'm the CEO. We represent about 268,000 businesses, and they're signing checks this week for 3 million employees and funding those payroll checks. About 40% of them are in the city of LA. I just want to strongly encourage you, as you're hearing, is to think through. We all want money to fall from the sky. I thought it was interesting, an earlier speaker who put it back and gave you a crazy scenario to say she has to cut her wages 70% if you guys paid for it by cutting your wages and so on. When it comes into you, it's difficult. When we have to do it as business owners, it's easy to want things, but then money doesn't fall from the sky. So let's do more time. Let's do teenage wage carve out. Let's look at small businesses. Together we can get this done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Sarah Mitchell with the Valley Industry and Commerce Association. I'm also taking the place of one of the speakers that you called that can't be here right now. I have spoken with a lot of the businesses that Vica represents, and they have shared the same sentiments about this proposal. They are not against the concept of higher wages for their employees and neighbors. What they are against is the proponents talking as if this proposal exists in a bubble. They are against the city, county, and state implementing regulation after regulation and cost after cost. One restaurant owner put it perfectly yesterday to a group of us. He said, our businesses are dying a death by 1,000 cuts. We cannot look at this proposal as if it is the only government action that is drastically changing how we do business here. I urge you to increase the length of the phase-in timeline while also implementing parallel actions that do something very uncommon around here, actually bringing relief to our businesses. Cut the red tape in meaningful ways and cut the business tax entirely. These acts together show you understand the actual business climate here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, please, Kent Renault, Rachel Torres, Maria Varela, Paul Salas, Bill Pryzluki, Debbie Walsh, and Francisca Lopez. Any of you here?
Good evening.
Proceed.
Thank you, Councilmember. Good evening. My name is Rachel Torres. I'm a senior research analyst with Unite Here Local 11. With the recommendations of this committee and the Los Angeles City Council, we passed the hotel minimum wage policy in September, which will put back at least $25 million back into the San Fernando Valley. The LA City Council made no distinction between tipped and non-tipped when it passed the hotel minimum wage law. If the LA City Council would have penalized tipped workers, as restaurant owners are urging you to do here, 98% of the workers affected would have been excluded. Bussers, housekeepers, massage therapists, servers, concierge, and drivers, front and back of the house workers all earn tips. The federal government says you're a tipped worker if you earn just $30 a month in tips. So who will determine who a tipped worker is? The City Council, with the guidance of the City Attorney's Office, wisely chose not to penalize workers who received tips in September. We strongly recommend that this committee follow that precedent, and we thank you for your continued support.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es María Varela y
Good afternoon. My name is María Varela.
vivo en la comunidad de San Fernando Gardens. He vivido allí por 20 años. Soy la presidenta de
I'm a resident of San Fernando Valley and the president of
la nueva mesa directiva.
Of the new executive
Y
board.
me acompaña la señora María Flores.
And Mrs. María Flores is here with me.
Venimos con el apoyo del alcalde Eddie Garcetti.
We're here to support the proposal of the mayor, Eddie Garcetti,
El aumento de $15 para toda la clase trabajadora.
to increase the $15 for all the labor.
Mi nombre es Elba Flores.
My name is Eva Flores.
Soy miembro de la mesa directiva y miembro de Power. Estoy aquí para apoyar el salario de $15, por favor, porque yo fui planchadora por 4 años y tuve que trabajar más de 12 horas.
Okay, I'm also a member of the board, executive board and a member of Power, and I'm just here to tell you that I've been a person that ironed the clothes for 15 years.
Y trabajaba más de 12 horas para alcanzar a pagar la babysitter.
I had to pay 12, and I had to work for 12 hours just to pay for the baby.
Habemos muchas personas
sitter.
indocumentadas
There is
y de
many of
bajos
us
ingresos.
that we don't have the documents and we have low
Por eso estamos aquí
wages.
para apoyar el salario de $15.
So that's the reason why we're here to support that $15 an hour.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Hi, I'm Bill Przlucky. I'm the Executive Director of Power, People Organized for West Side Renewal. I'd like to thank Councilman Bonin, who works with our folks on the west side, for all his hard work on this issue. Today, we're here with our base in Pacoima. I just want to say briefly that we are here to support $15 an hour. Bill Moyers and Moody's just released some numbers that more money going into the wealthiest folks' pocketbooks puts about 39 cents per dollar into the GDP. Going into the lowest wage workers, it puts about $1.21 into the GDP. So if you want to help business in Los Angeles and families and our economy recover, you will raise the wage, you will raise it quickly, you will get to $15 as fast as possible and as aggressively as possible. If you want to help our folks, low-income folks who live in public housing, Section 8 housing, you will do strong enforcement on wage theft, and you will give folks 6 days to take care of their families and be able to keep their jobs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Debbie Walsh. I'm with ACE. I'm here in support of the wage increase to $15 an hour, paid sick days, and protections against wage theft. I've lived in Mission Hills for 30 years. I've been an educator for 24 years. I currently work as an educator for a private company based in Woodland Hills. They place teachers in private and charter schools. As an educator, I am currently making between $12 and $15 an hour, which does not go very far in paying my bills, but it's my best option for right now. I also have to work a second job teaching at night and on the weekends just to make ends meet. So I definitely support raising the minimum to $15 because even though it's not enough to live comfortably, it's a whole lot better than $9 an hour. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we appreciate your patience. We are heading into the stretch. Our next speakers are Donato Poro, Michael Komaruski, Alan Schumann, Julie Klignick, Warner Ebick, Mahajabin Mutab, and William Chad.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good evening, everybody. My name is Donato Poto. I am with the Small Restaurants for Fair Wages group, and I am the co-owner of two restaurants located in Los Angeles and West Hollywood. I'm here tonight in support of the mayor's plan for the $13.25 minimum wage. Our restaurant employs 120 people here in Los Angeles, and as a restaurant owner, I definitely agree for earning a fair living. In fact, we pay all of our non-tipped employees wages above minimum wage. However, our tipped employees, they do well above the targeted $13.25 per hour wage. So I don't think that there is a need of increase in the tipped employees. If you don't consider a total compensation model, you will force restaurants to close. Please consider it. If you do, everyone will benefit out of it for sure. Even though the council members have been advised that state law prohibits a tip credit, I'm sure that the state law does not prohibit a total compensation model. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Julie Kleineck. I work for the A.F. Gilmore Company, the operators of the original farmers market. I'm here to represent both ourselves as well as the tenants of the original market. As an icon of the city of Los Angeles for over 80 years, we're home to 90 retailers, restaurateurs, grocers, and service providers, 75% of whom are small mom-and-pop business owners. Increasing the minimum wage from $10 an hour next year to $13.25 in 2017 will have a staggering impact on these small business owners, many of whom are multi-generational businesses. Our tenants are daunted by the prospect of such an enormous wage increase in such a short period of time. Further, the staff of the 65 housekeeping, security, and parking workers that provide services at the property will be impacted as we will have to cut staffing in order to maintain affordable operating costs for our tenants. Based on conservative assumptions, the increased cost to provide these services at the market will be approximately $450,000 in the first year alone. We don't oppose the Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bill Chait. My partners and I operate a number of restaurants around Los Angeles. One of the components of this that I think is telling is that our governor, who signed Labor Code 351 into law, now understands that if he knew then what he knows now, he would have changed the way he basically was supported that. The total compensation model that Seattle used, we think, is a really telling example of how to come together to create a solution that works for everybody. There's no question that in the restaurant industry, the concept of creating essentially a higher minimum wage for the front of the house staff when they've already made $20 or $25 or $30 or $40 an hour is in effect a zero-sum game for the people in the back of the house. We all recognize that the increase in the minimum wage for the back of the house would be something that would be a huge positive. Notwithstanding the fact that we have a very strong feeling about the solution that's on the table, we know that there's a solution that we would all support that we could come together on if you would work to get there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mahajben Matab. I'm here today representing Kiwa. My family migrated from Bangladesh in the early 90s. I am a manager at a family-owned restaurant in Little Bangladesh in Los Angeles. I see families struggle paycheck to paycheck on a daily basis. I am very connected with the community members, and I can say that most of them are living off of their credit cards, regardless of their profession. Raising the wage to $15 will help everyone in all fields of work so we can live a better life and slowly recover and get out of debt. I just want to thank everyone for your time, and I want to thank you in advance for taking the step and raising the wage. Thank you.
Thank you. Maria Rodriguez, Javier Sarmiento, Eric Brule, Miguel Velasquez, Jose Punyak, Vanessa Serrano, and Joyce Fletcher.
Good evening, council members. My name is Javier Sarmiento, and I live here in Panorama City for over 25 years, and I'm here in support of $15 an hour. I think it's the right thing to do, and if we earn enough, I'm saying to the business owners not to be afraid. We're going to go spend the money back to the community, and my wife works in Goodwill. She makes $10 an hour. It's not enough. Paycheck comes in one hand and it goes out in the left hand. I have worked for Home Depot making $9 an hour. It's not enough. I think and I believe that it's the right thing for you guys to raise to $15 an hour. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eric Brule. I represent Proactive Sober Living. I live in West Hills. I'm here to support the $15 an hour. I've been a business owner in the Valley for 15 years. For 10 years, I ran a spa and construction business, and I had as many as 15 employees. My wife and I currently run a sober living, and we work in partnership with the Los Angeles County Health and Mental Services. People who have addiction, and we found out that a lot of these people usually, if they had a job, a living wage job, they wouldn't fall into addictions. We think that currently the minimum wage is not a living wage, and common sense would tell people that to have a living wage, And fortunately, Santa's not always coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next up.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Miguel Vázquez.
Good
Vengo
afternoon, my name is
representando
Miguel
la
Vázquez.
organización de Rockley.
I'm in the Rockley organization.
Yo he pasado por muchas cosas en diferentes ramas de trabajo. Y
I've
vengo
gone through
apoyando el
different
salario
types of
de
work.
$15 y que pongan un alto ya a todos esos empresarios, disculpen la palabra, rateros y explotadores.
So I would like
La
to
verdad.
let you guys know
Yo
that
he
I support that
tenido-
$15.
Please.
That $15 an hour, and excuse my wording, but I would like you to stop all these. Yeah, all these people that steal the money from the wages from the employees.
Yo he tenido 4 accidentes.
And
y
I have
ninguno
had
de
4
mis
accidents,
patrones
and
han
none-
respondido como deben de responder.
And none of my employers have responded the correct way.
¿Sí? También a todos los políticos y a todos los que se encuentran hoy en pongan cartas en el asunto para cuando uno se queje, no nada más.
So I
Se
want to
quede
tell
ahí.
all the politicians and all the elected officials here present that please, when we have these issues, please do something about it.
Alto también a todo lo que nos hacen porque dejan propinas a nosotros y nos quitan todo. Y entre más aumento quieren uno de salario, nos dan aumento de trabajo. Ya es
So I would like to have them
alto
to
ya
stop what
todo
they're
ese
doing
robo
to
de,
us.
de explotaciones para nosotros. Le digo, yo tengo 4 accidentes, mi pierna y mi espalda.
Okay, so I want to tell you guys to please have them, all these employers, to stop what they're doing, because every time we ask for increase of salaries, the only thing that we get is an increase of
Y que nos den los
workload.
beneficios justos.
And that we
justos
can
a
receive
todos.
the
No solo
just and fair
el que tiene
benefits.
papeles, no tiene papeles, o que sepa inglés, no sepa inglés, o sepa hablar, no sepa hablar.
So
Necesitamos alto ya a esto de robo de salario y a alzar el salario mínimo.
So we
Porque
need
ya
to
es
have
justo.
an equal benefits for
Gracias.
everybody. Doesn't matter if they speak or
Thank
not
you.
speak English, if they have papers or not. So we need to have everybody to stop all these theft of wage.
All right, thank you. Gracias.
My name is Joyce Fletcher, and I own a marketing company, and I support raising the minimum wage. My father died when I was 10, and my mother went to work in a dress factory earning minimum wage. We were poor, but I lived in a good neighborhood, and I went to good public schools. Because in Texas in 1960, rent was about $75 a month, and public schools were wonderful. Minimum wage was $2, but 1 week's pay would pay the rent. In 1968, the minimum wage was high enough to keep a family of 3 out of poverty. Today, the minimum wage leaves a full-time working parent with 1 child in poverty. Because the minimum wage can't keep up, has not kept up with the cost of living, and I believe that in 2015, to believe that in 2015 you can pay a person $9 an hour and think they can live in a safe neighborhood and support their children is a fantasy.
Okay. James Dion, George Yunan, Anthony Caron, Sean McCarthy, Rochelle Ashley, Cindy Macaulay, Andrew Grolan, and Tracy Rafter. In that order.
Hi, Anthony Caron here. I'm a restaurant owner in the city of LA. I started as a dishwasher in my career. I've worked every position all the way up the line. I've been fortunate enough through hard work and determination to be able to open a restaurant. And we've grown that now to where I have 5 restaurants and I employ 250 people in the city of Los Angeles. I think it's really unfortunate that we're pitting each other against each other. I think everybody in this room, given the opportunity, would love to be able to grow their own business as well. I don't believe that increasing the minimum wage this fast, this soon after the biggest recession we've had in forever is responsible or will give other people a greater opportunity to start their own businesses. I'm very concerned would like to see a training wage and a wage for people under the age of 25 who are just entering the workforce, who we employ mostly of. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Cindy McCauley, the Executive Director at TLC, an agency that serves developmentally disabled and blind. 98% of our funding comes from state and federal resources. Our federal reimbursement rate has been frozen since 2008, and in 2014, our Medi-Cal funding was decreased by 5%, or about $300,000 on our budget. State rates have been stagnant since 2000. The proposed minimum wage increase at $13.25 an hour will increase our payroll costs by approximately $1 million a year before benefits. The letter to the committee mentions an increased donor appeal. This will provide some relief, but please note that if this is the method relied upon by nonprofits, the pool of donors will be stretched to the limit. Phasing in a minimum wage increase may also provide some relief, but it will impact our ability to hire qualified staff whose job it is to provide services to some of the most vulnerable residents of our city. I want to thank the council members who wrote the letter, Bob Blumenfield, Felipe Fuentes, and Councilmember O'Farrell for their thoughtful letter that not only addresses the issues but provides solutions as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Golan. I own a small movie theater company. I'm asking you tonight to consider instituting a training wage for new hires as part of the proposed increase in minimum wage. Most of our theaters, the majority of employees are students working part-time, and this is often their first job. Through this opportunity, they not only receive a paycheck, they also learn valuable skills such as how to treat customers with respect, how to show up on time, be reliable, and how to address issues as they arise. They may only be looking for a summer job or have to quit when their school schedule becomes too rigorous. The proposed minimum wage will not be easy for us to absorb. Aside from raising prices, we will need to automate some of our employee positions, such as using kiosks to buy tickets. As a way to help us maintain a viable business, we are asking you to consider a training period exemption to the increased minimum wage for the first 6 to 9 months of an employee's time on the job. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're down to our last 5. Okay. Hold your applause. Kathy Schreiner, Alan Gettleman, Jason Ackerman, Kurt Kruber, and Mary Garcia, please.
Hi, my name is Kathy Schreiner. I live in Van Nuys, and while I'm not speaking for them, I am a member of the Los Angeles Child Care Planning Committee that represents the interests of early childhood centers and family child care. So we know that our workers are completely underpaid, especially for the education that they have and the responsibility of taking care of young children. So we support an increase in the minimum wage, but we can't pay it unless we get an increase in the revenue, and that is primarily from the state for subsidized children, state and federal, and then also parents pay for the tuition. So we don't want to be excluded from the minimum wage. That will just lose us, our best employees, to other people who can pay more. But we hope that you'll help to think about a solution that doesn't just involve expense, but involves revenue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jason Ackerman. I'm on the Encino Neighbor Council, although I'm not speaking in that capacity today. So it's been a very long day, and I appreciate everyone for hanging in there who's still here. So first off, I want to address the issue of the $15 an hour. I think that this is honestly too low. That the cost to live in the city of Los Angeles, if you want to live in the city of Los Angeles, you need $33 an hour, and I don't hear anywhere near that yet. So while $15 is a good start, we need to make sure that's not the ceiling, that's not the end of the discussion, because we've been avoiding this discussion for my entire lifetime, pretty much. And I'm 29 years old, in case you're wondering. The other issue is, as a candidate for New York mayor famously said, the rent is too damn high. We need to bring up the wages and bring down the rent. Thank you.
Thank you.
evening, Mary Garcia. Thank you all for being here tonight to hear us. Please consider the cost of not raising the minimum wage. Can you really go on living a dream that things will change for our city? Things will not change. Rents continue to rise. Food is more expensive. Even taking your family to a movie is impossible. Forget going to Disneyland. If you look at Los Angeles as the heart of California, look closely. We must do something before this heart flatlines. Raise the minimum wage for a healthy Los Angeles. Have a heart. Raise the minimum wage, please.
Thank you. That concludes our public testimony this evening, and again, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us with your very thoughtful comments and concerns. As we wrap up our series of hearings later this week, I know that my colleagues and I are going to be taking into serious consideration all of the relevant feedback that's been shared, certainly at this hearing and then the ones we've had before and the one coming up. Beyond any financial reason to implement this policy, I feel it really is our moral responsibility to get this policy done. Councilman Krikorian, tonight we've heard some very interesting comments, phasing in for nonprofits, wage compression, strong enforcement, concerns about total compensation for tipped employees, issues about teen wage or training wage. Any comment you'd like to make as we wrap up this evening?
No, I just want to thank everybody for their patience in sitting through a long hearing, for their input. We heard respectful and thoughtful comments, I think, by everybody on all sides of this issue, and they were exactly the issues that we're going to be grappling with as we move forward. And I, again, want to thank everybody for their participation, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for coming out and allowing so many people to be heard here in the San Fernando Valley.
Well, thank you, Councilman, for your comments, and we certainly appreciate the hospitality of Councilwoman Martinez, who, pardon? And the coffee, right. But Councilwoman, any closing thoughts?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. I also want to thank our colleagues, Mr. Bonin, Mr. Fuentes, and Mr. O'Farrell for staying for the entire hearing. Thank you very much for coming out this evening. And also thank all of you. I think we had over 100 speakers this evening, a lot more than we had on Thursday, and we probably were expecting a larger crowd on Thursday, which is going to be our last hearing in West Los Angeles. But I was very proud to see my constituents here. I saw Panorama City, North Hills, portions of Van Nuys represented here this evening. One of the things that all three studies do agree on is that a vast majority of the folks that I represent in Council District 6 would benefit from a wage increase. You know, I often talk about my experience growing up in the Northeast San Fernando Valley. My dad was a dishwasher and who never drove and still doesn't. And he's about 82 years old, and my mom was a factory worker that was lucky enough to get that $13 an hour job in the 1980s, which made a huge difference in my sister and my life growing up in the Northeast Valley. Those jobs are gone. We don't have the General Motors plant. Price Pfister, where my mother used to work, is gone. The Carnation plant down the street is gone. Boeing, all those good paying jobs that used to exist in the San Fernando Valley and why our families lived here are all gone. And so I have a huge responsibility to all the single moms in my district that sometimes when I drop off my daughter at daycare and we pick her up before 6 o'clock, half of her friends at daycare are still there because their moms are not out of work and cannot pick them up before 5 o'clock. The vast majority of the people who stand on the bus stops waiting for the bus to go wash our dishes at a restaurant, to go wait on us, to go take care of our children, to go, work in some of the factory jobs on the other side of the hill. These are the people that I represent. And so it is incredible to see the amount of people that were here this evening. So I understand no study can explain or can tell us, for those of us who grew up in the Valley, what it feels like to be poor, because some of us know that all too well. And so we have a tremendous responsibility here, Mr. Chair, in making sure that we do this responsibly and that we hear from both sides and try to get to a middle ground where we can raise the wages and also ensure that the businesses are still thriving and can still be here after we do so. So I want to thank everyone again for being here this evening, and I look forward to another conversation on Thursday night in West LA. I hope some of you can make it there as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And you're right, our next hearing is going to be on Thursday, April the 2nd at 6 p.m. at the Museum of Tolerance in West LA, and we look forward to your coming out and participating. I just want to thank the council staffs for helping to arrange today's event. The CLA, appreciate your presence. My council colleagues, neighbors, constituents, and friends, we appreciate your participation and your thoughtful comments this evening. Mr. Clerk, is there any other business before us at this time?
No, that concludes the business of the committee.
Okay, seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.